Hello YouTube chess lovers and welcome to the first round of the Altibox Norway Chess Tournament 2018. Well, this is the biggest tournament of the year. Well, of course, the candidates and the World Championship match have bigger meaning, but this one has almost all the top players in the world. 10 out of the top 14 are playing in this tournament, and only Kramnik and Geary that we can say are notably missing. Yesterday they played the blitz tournament to decide who gets 5 whites in the tournament and who gets 5 blacks. And if you follow that, you know that Carlsen will be playing 5 whites, but Caruana will be playing 5 blacks. This is the opposite of what happened in the Grenke Chess Classic, where Caruana and Carlsen met in the first round as well. In that case, Caruana had the white pieces, and Carlsen was close to winning, but Caruana managed to save the draw and he won that tournament. But what will happen in this one? This is a marquee matchup. These guys will meet at the end of the year to battle it out for the World Championship. My feeling as of now and so far has been that Magnus is the favorite. He has been showing it, in my opinion, but I do believe that Caruana is just about the best challenge that we can get at the moment. But on to the game of the day. Carlsen had white and he opened with pawn to e4. e5 from Caruana, no surprise. And well, Caruana has been perfecting the Petrov defense, and that might explain Carlsen's next move, bishop to c4. The bishop's opening. And this, of course, avoids the Petrov, because of the knight f6, as Caruana played. We can now play d3, protecting the pawn, and we don't have to give up or exchange the e-pawns. c6, this is one of the standard ways to meet the bishop's opening. White isn't challenging the pawn on e5, so d5 becomes available. He sets it up with c6, knight to f3 and d5. This we also saw in the Women's World Championship match between Tan Xiangyi and Yu Wenyun. Tan Xiangyi had white, and she did employ the bishop's opening. It went exactly this way. But there we had a5 and a4. Slightly different development, although it tends to transpose. And here c3 was played. The bishop went back to d6. In this game, Caruana went with bishop to b4 check immediately. Now we could play c3 here, and most likely this would transpose. After bishop d6, black can later play a5, a4. But this is also very noteworthy because in the famous tournament, the Sinquefield Cup in 2014, that's a tournament where Caruana won his first 7 games. Astonishing performance, one of the best performances in a round-robin tournament almost ever. They did play this game in the same opening, and Carlsen won c3. And we'll quickly see what happened. It was a very interesting game where Carlsen ended up sacrificing a piece around here. After knight c5, he took on f7, and massive complications ensued. King f7. As you can see, very complicated game, which Caruana managed to win. But today, Carlsen deviated. He played bishop to d2. Caruana took on d2, knight b takes d2, and now a5. And whenever this move shows up, we're threatening to win this piece. So you either have to play a4 or to make luft for the bishop with c3, which Carlsen did. Knight b to d7. This pawn was under attack. E takes d5, c takes d5. Both sides castled. Some logical moves. Rook comes to the open file, attacking the pawn. Black defends it. Knight to f1. Heading for greener pastures on g3 or e3. And here Caruana decides to expand on the queen side. He wants his bishop on b7. And after a4 we have b4. Now there's a change in the pawn structure. White takes. And some interesting things have happened with this exchange here. White does have fewer pawns on the center, But on the other hand, he has a protected passed pawn here, which could and will become a factor in an endgame. And we all know what Magnus is capable of in the endgames, but we're still very far away from the endgame. Knight e3 was played here, attacking the pawn, improving the knight, bishop e7, defending. And here is the interesting moment in the game. Some commentators thought that White didn't really have much here, probably nothing. But Carlsen came up with a very interesting concept. He played d4, which doesn't look too great. Because after e4, where do we put the knight? Okay, if you put it on h4, there's g6, and where is this knight heading? Maybe you can play like this, play g3 and reroute the knight. But probably black doesn't have much to worry about here. But Carlsen, he had other ideas. He put the knight on e5, which looked unavailable because it loses a pawn. Caruana took up the challenge, he took the pawn, but now queen to d4. So Caruana is up a pawn, but White has this fantastic blockade. This queen, it's blocking everything. So these pawns, they're not going anywhere. Let's make them red because they're bad. This is a weakness. This isn't going anywhere, and this will make the bishop a little bit passive. It's only defending the pawn, so you can't really do much. And black doesn't really have any pawn breaks or an easy plan. So okay, for now, rook e7. We'll mention that we have to keep the blockade for now. We can't take the pawn on b4 because d4. Now the pawns become an asset for black. We've opened up for the bishop. There's more space for everything, and it will be difficult to deal with these pawns. So Carlsen keeps the blockade, plays rook a to c1, rook to d7, and White keeps this pressure on this pawn here. 3 pieces already attacking the pawn, so black is really tied down to this pawn. Rook e d1, adding a 4th attacker, so 4-4. We're keeping parity here. h6, rook c5. Okay, maybe threatening to win the pawn now, so rook a5. Defending with an x-ray, we have trades. And the trade don't matter. White is down a pawn, but he just calmly plays h3, making luft for the king. And it's noteworthy that black really, okay, he can play rook c7, but what is he going to do? Everything is covered here by the pawn and the bishop. There's no entry here. So White just slowly builds up the pressure, keeps the blockade. The blockade can't be lifted. If you start to maneuver the knight, I can start thinking about picking up a pawn. So no easy plan for black. Rook c1. And here, okay, maybe black should bide his time, but he played rook c7. And probably this is the first inaccuracy or mistake by Caruana, which allows Carlsen to pick up the pawn on b4. He has equalized on material. After queen c1, we're actually not winning this pawn because of bishop d1, which uncooks this defense of the b2 pawn. So Carlsen is just keeping full control here. Bishop to a6, queen d4, and this queen, as you can see throughout the game, centralized and excellent, protecting everything, protecting the b2 pawn, keeping an eye on the bishop. Later it will defend this, and we're also ready to help to escort the a pawn up the board. Remember the past a pawn we talked about earlier? It might be becoming a factor. Bishop to e2, king h2. We have a trade here, but notice here how everything is defended. Black does have a passed pawn, but it's not going anywhere, and meanwhile the white pawns on the queen side are about to become very mobile if we can get them once they start rolling. Perhaps there was more hold in playing queen to a1 here, when okay, white will improve, but for now, I mean, you can't move the b pawn, you can't move the a pawn, so at least you have to think about it. But instead he played queen to c7 check, king g1, queen c1, and now b4. The pawns are rolling. It's clear that white should be winning here. I mean, the pawns are rolling. What to do? And it seems like Caruana, okay, he sensed that and he went for counterplay. He played e3. And the idea here is simply to try and activate this knight, which has been sitting since move 2 there, basically not doing much. F takes e3, and now the knight comes in. The problem with this is that you're giving up another pawn on d5, and Carlsen is actually 2 pawns up right now. And Carlsen probably has everything under control here. Knight d2 was played, and this does seem to trap the knight, because both b3 and f3, which cover the knight on d1, are indeed covered by the black knight on d2. But Carlsen finds this intermediate check, queen to f5, and now queen g4. So the knight is covered, up 2 pawns, and now the queen comes back to home base. Knight to e4, okay, there's a threat to come to c3, but queen e1 covers this threat. There was a pin, but now, again, everything under control. Queen to a1, a5, and yeah, I mean, there's not much to be done here. Knight d6, queen d2, the knight comes into c4, and again the queen enters the beautifully centralized d4 square from where it's covering so many things as before. Queen to c1, and here Carlsen played king f1. He does allow 1 pawn to be captured, but he's fine with it because it just makes the win that much easier. Caruana did take on e3, not much else to recommend. Queen takes e3 and queen takes d1, regaining the piece. But okay, white is only up a pawn at the moment, but very strong pawn. So now we just have to find a plan, and I'm sure Carlsen had everything in his mind here. Either you tuck the king on h2 and try to control this diagonal, not to allow the perpetual check, or you walk with the king over to the pawns and push them with your queen and king, push them baby. But let's see, queen g2, king g3, and g5 check. Now this threatens to win the queen with f4 check, but that's easily repelled by Carlsen. Queen to e5 check, king h7, king back to h2. Yeah, one of the 2 ideas, and this seems more logical, just to keep the king here. If we can keep control of this diagonal, there's never a perpetual check. This was covered in one of my pattern recognition videos, and then we just push the pawns. Caruana went f4. His idea is at some point to try to get the queen and to threaten some kind of perpetual, but Carlsen just keeps control. Queen d5, queen to a4, and now queen f7. King goes to h8, and the problem here is that Carlsen can start picking up the pawns, which he does now with queen to g6, and threatening to take this with check. He is giving up one of his pawns, but he's getting 2 in return, so he only needs to keep 1 basically on the queen side, and that's what happens. Queen takes b4, queen takes pawn check, takes another pawn, and here he repeated twice. Check on h5, back to g5, and finally then h4. And this has the strong idea of simply pushing the pawn, and then after you push it, you can put the queen on g7. Black will cover it with the queen somehow, but this will force a trade, and then the a pawn will decide. Caruana tried to play queen to d6. Okay, one idea here to give check, but even that doesn't do anything. Again, Carlsen showed who's boss, good technique, just repeating king h7 before going h5, and now the threat is to play queen g6, trade the queens, which wins. f3 check, last ditch try, but it isn't even a try. Queen g3 can be played, but Carlsen played g3. Note that the queen is covering d2, so no check by the black queen. And yeah, we're renewing the threat of queen g6 check. So what to do for black, really? So yeah, everything covered. After g3, Caruana tried f2. Unfortunately, this does allow queen g6, which simplifies if you take it, which it didn't do. if you take, it's check, so you don't have time to queen. So king takes, stop the pawn, queen my own pawn. However, there is a trick which Caruana played. He played king h8. So hoping for some stalemate tricks, but I just take the queen on d6. You make a new queen, but in making that queen you lose this pawn. So now Fabi is down 3 pawns, 1, 2, 3, which is not going to be good. And well, the game actually went on far longer than it should have. Black can safely resign here, but Carlsen had some fun. Queen c3 check. This protects the a5 pawn. If we can get the arrow correct. King h7 and now g4 protecting the other pawn. The queen was attacking both. Queen d5. Queen g7, king g8, king g3. And the king is quite safe. I mean, you can give one check here, but then after I go here, you don't have another check. Queen e6, queen d8 check, king h7. And now Carlsen just pushes the pawn, keeps the queen on a square where he's covering a lot of checks from here, here. Queen e5 check, king h3. Again, covering some squares, the third rank, f1. Queen d8 check, king h7. And now finally he gives a check on e3 and pushes the pawn. And here finally Fabiano had seen enough. And yeah, a nice win for Magnus. Very interesting. This might be the last game they will play before their World Championship match, so this has quite a meaning. You know, Magnus has the confidence. They might play at the Olympiad, but other than that, I think this is more or less guaranteed to be their only matchup before the World Championship. So yeah, Magnus takes the lead at Norway. Altibox Norway Chess, only guy to win in the first round. And yeah, it will be interesting to see what happens. How will Caruana bounce back? And I will see you in future videos from this tournament. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.